am representing homes and assisted living.
Perfect. And I think we're joined today by two DOL staff. Erica, do you want to say hello?
Sure. I'm Erica Anderson. I'm acting in the staff capacity for Angie, who's currently out, but will be back at the end of this month.
Excellent. And Dylan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dylan Murray. I'm the Director of Legislative Strategy for the Department of Labor, and I'm here to support Erica and the committee. So happy to be here.
Terrific. And so I think we have sent an update. I do want to, do we have anybody coming from the Maine Health Data Organization, Erica?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, I guess then I will offer what limited update that I can have. That was, by the way, my intention was to have somebody here from MHDO who could offer real updates. But I did happen to meet with Karen Lee last week and wanted to say that LD 977, for those of you who weren't watching all the time, did in fact get passed this legislative session and funded, which is a highly unusual thing. And so their work has really just commenced. What they are clear about is they are probably not going to get it done within the time frame that the initial bill had required, but they will have something done this next legislative session for the Health and Human Services Committee to look at. And so they are in the very early stages. And by the way, can I just say it's really exciting. The folks at the Maine Health Data Organization, Karen Lee and her board, are really excited about this work and think there's real opportunity in doing the work for some other, sort of bigger conversations that need to happen all the way up to including, beginning to look at the number of people that we're housing in hospitals that need to be housed somewhere else. And so that's not data that we included specifically in LD 977, but that's definitely something that they are starting to think about, sort of bigger picture, longer term. So they are starting right now to understand what data exists and working with the department and the different heads within the department, as well as the advocacy organizations externally to sort of say, how would this data be useful to anybody? And I think so they're just starting at the very beginning to have conversations with all of the interested parties. I think that's a really good word within the state and outside of the state to understand how is this data going to be ultimately useful, big picture, long term, so that they design the proposed data collection in a way that will be most helpful. So I just wanted that's my update on that, which is to say it's early days, and they are just starting the work. Are really excited about the work and ultimately, again, probably not going to get it done January 1st, but definitely are interested in making sure that it happens next session. Jamie, I don't know if you've got anything else. I saw you were nodding, so I don't know if you've got anything else you want to offer in that regard.
No, I've got some slides to share, and I had put that on my first slide. And just going to say, just like you said, early days, and ODES and OMS will be discussing next steps in the coming weeks. So
great.
Yeah.
Well, then why don't we go ahead and just turn things over to you, because you're the next up on the agenda, which is really any updates in relation to data and credentialing, as well as some of the work the department is doing nationally on this workforce. So how about if we just ask you to take it away, Jamie?
Okay, what a great segue. Okay, let me just see. Can you see the big screen presentation?
We can. It's
Okay.
looking good.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to update you on a few things. That's really all I had around data, just that it's those early days. But then also want to touch base on our partnership and participation in the NCOA and Direct Care Workforce Strategy Center, along with PHI, and then I'll give an update about the DSW core curriculum pilot that we ran, started in June. So we've got one wrapped up. Okay, so the Direct Care Workforce Strategy Center works with lots of national agencies, NGA, NCOA, PHI, and many other partnerships. And they are offering, this year they're calling this a State Advancement Lab. Maine was part of the 2024 partnership with their Peer Learning Collaborative, which was a cross-system change working group that included representatives from Department of Health and Human Services, from OMS, and from ODES. And so this is actually the third year that DCW is hosting some kind of a technical assistance program. This is our second year participating. And we're excited to be in this this technical assistance program because one of their tracks and one of their focuses for the cohorts is on career progression. So we'll get technical assistance from subject matter experts and some great collaboration across departments and states. It's always great to learn from what other states have done and what we can take from those lessons. And Jake McDonald from PHI is actually our subject matter expert for this program. So the three cohorts focus on career progression, joining the workforce, or well-being at work. And having been a part of this group before and understanding where we're at with our DSW core curriculum, we really felt like career progression is where we wanted to focus our energies and really learn more about some strategies that other states have used. And this map here just demonstrates the different cohorts and how many states are participating in this. And DCW Strategy Center not only has these smaller cohorts, but they also have a larger, we get to kind of hear what the other cohorts are doing as they progress through their milestones as well. So as I mentioned, our goals of participating in this technical assistance is to focus on the career progression that they're offering, and because it directly builds upon our DSW work and the upcoming direct support professional DSP add-on credentials. It emphasizes our strategies to strengthen career development and workforce stability, and supports the creation of specialized tracks that recognize the areas of expertise and enhance the portability of credentials, which obviously was our goal with the DSW core curriculum work. And it also aligns with some of the current discussions that we've been having in the state on micro-credentials in dementia care, which demonstrates one potential for specialty training and credential stacking for the future. So this also is in its early days. So we are currently in the discovery process. We had one meeting in August as the larger cohort, and an introductory call with Jake, our SME, who, obviously we're familiar with as well. So that was nice. There's a second meeting tomorrow, but some of us will miss that call. But we will have representation on that call because we'll be at the conference and Jake will be there as well. So be nice to see him in person. Skipped ahead. So that's pretty much my update for our participation in that technical assistance program. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm curious, and the answer is perfectly happy. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with the answer being no, but do you see any role for this advisory council to play in that work? Is there any way we can be helpful?
I think it's so early right now. We're really trying to understand what some other states have done with micro-credentials, stackable credentials, and figure out how that could piece into our core curriculum work. Obviously, I can continue to keep you updated, and if there's anything that comes up that we feel like, we would always appreciate a partnership. So,
Great. I would,
I will keep you updated as we go.
I know, Michael, I'm just curious. I always want to think about if there's anybody in Maine. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Michael, but I know that Catholic Charities quite a long time ago was talking a lot about micro-credentialing, and didn't know if you ended up going in that direction or not.
We didn't, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, cool. Then I have no.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry to give you a dead end.
All good. Anybody else have any questions on this? It's exciting that you're participating in this, and we're really pleased about that.
Yeah, it's Jake is in that discovery process and gathering some information from what other states are doing, and it's great to hear all of the work that's being done across the country to help with these portabilities of credentials and our workforce initiatives. So here is I'll just give a quick update too on the pilot that we did for direct service worker core curriculum. So just as a reminder, kind of overview, the course is complete and is hosted in the LMS at Muskie Institute. We have translated the modules into the top 5 new major languages, and that is transitioned into the online portion. And we are actually underway with a project working on ASL interpretation and translation for the course as well. That's been really exciting and interesting, and we've had a lot of great feedback from the deaf community and really great engagement and participation. The DSP training add-on is currently under development. I think we plan for some opportunities to review and provide feedback probably sometime early this fall. And again, I really just love this graphic that shows how the transition from what our PSS training has historically been to the DSW core curriculum course, and then the DSP add-on as what that full credential will look like for DSPs. So we have some barriers to implementation statewide rollout for the course because of some policy revisions that need to happen. And current policy states that PSS trainings must include at least 50 hours of instruction, demonstration, and an examination. We are looking to just take out that 50 hours because we've been able to streamline and crosswalk both trainings and condensed it. So once we're able to update those policies and waivers, we'll be able to roll out statewide. In the meantime, private pay personal care agencies, we did some outreach to see who would be interested in piloting both the online and the skills demonstration, so the full credential, the full course. Had some really positive engagement from private pay agencies, and worked closely with DLC to ensure that the workers that are trained under the pilot meet staff training requirements under the new PCA licensure rule. So the first pilot we started, I'll say PCA rule required some trainings to be done for existing staff and be completed by August 19th was the deadline for the rule. It had been a year since it was enacted. And so we developed the first pilot with a goal of trying to make sure we met that deadline for PCAs. So we had 4 agencies that enrolled. They had to be private pay because of, main care funding wouldn't be reimbursed if it was not a private pay agency. We ended up with 6 DSW instructors that are now certified trainers for the DSW course through DLC. We originally had started with 89 learners that were enrolled in the launch of the pilot. The online modules, we've now this is complete. The pilot number 1 is complete. So we ran reports. The average of the online modules was a little over 12 hours, but there were some that took longer, some that took less. But the average is about 12.2 hours. And there was a 100% pass rate for the final exam. And then they had a certificate of completion for the modules that then allowed them to sign up for the skills demonstration with the instructors in order to demonstrate competency of really foundational skills that would be used across different care environments for both PSS and DSP. The live skills demonstration days, we had a rubric for each skill to be demonstrated, outlining what critical steps had to be taken in order to demonstrate competency. And again, the goal for the skills checklist and the demonstration was not about the length of time that was taken for the learners. It really was about that instructor being a coach and feeling like the learners could demonstrate competency. So we had set an estimate of about 8 hours to complete the skills demonstration day. Most completed around 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours, depending on the experience of the learners. The best size for the cohorts, the first pilot said, were about 6 to 8 learners for the skills demonstration. So got some really great positive feedback from both learners and from instructors. So at the conclusion of the first pilot, we had 67 learners that completed the pilot. So a little bit of turnover there. We are interestingly seeing workers that work in multiple agencies, and we've seen that now. We're running a second pilot. So we've seen some that maybe didn't complete in the first pilot, but now they're signed up for the second pilot with another agency. But all of the certifications for our new direct service workers are listed in the State ALMS database and can be found on DLC's website, as are the certified trainers. They are also listed on DLC's website. And they can continue to use the up-to-date DSW core curriculum for new hires that they onboard. And even, we had feedback sessions with the instructors and had told them like that's a benefit of being in the pilot. You're now a certified trainer for this course. And so they just last week added 16 new learners from that first pilot. The second pilot, because of capacity, we wanted to keep the pilots around 100 learners or so, make sure that it was manageable and that we could stay in close contact with agencies as they were going through the trainings. And so because of the positive feedback that we had gotten from private pay agencies, we were able to launch a second pilot. We worked with DLC and had them complete waivers to have an extended timeline. And so we launched pilot number 2 on August 1st and seek to wrap that up by October 15th. And that has 5 private pay agencies. And at the start, we've got 115 learners enrolled in the second pilot. So that's my update on the pilot. Anyone have any questions on that?
Betsy.
Thank you. What is your definition of private pay agency?
It's a home care agency that doesn't serve any main care funded clients because of rule that needs to change and policies and waivers. We've been unable to roll it out to main care.
And we don't know, or do we know that what their hiring credentials are when they hire those folks? Are they any different than what a main care hiring?
No, I think it would be the same. It could be the same. The same worker that.
Okay. And so, Jamie, do you know that if any of these workers had any prior training prior to participating in the pilot?
It varies. Some are brand new novice workers in this field, and some are very experienced caregivers. There were some previous CNAs that had taken the pilot as well. So it's definitely a mixture of experiences across the board. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Other questions? I have a few that'll surprise no one. Do you have any idea about the timing for the rule changes? Like what the expectation is? Does that sound like you actually do like a state plan amendment?
Yes, we have to update rule through OMS, and that includes waivers. I know there are several sections that include that 50-hour phrase. Some of them are open, some of them are not, but nothing has been finalized yet. So we're pressing and keeping it top of mind for sure.
Once those go into effect, and again, this just might be you haven't gotten there yet, what's the process you're gonna follow or you plan to follow in relation to getting folks who are currently PSSs and DSPs into the program? In other words, is it gonna be in a rolling way? Do they have to participate, or does the PSS it's not even a certification, but so what is the process for moving everybody from where they are through this project, through the program and getting them all over into being DSWs?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some logistics that still have to be worked out on that. The goal for registration, once we've figured out those kind of details, is that it will be a self-registration. You can go onto the website and enroll in the course. And then, the agency or the employer will have to verify that the online portion is complete and then do the skills demonstration day before sending, like the current process for PSS is sending that paperwork over to DLC so that it can get into the database. So we really want to make sure it's simple for people to register and for workers to get in there and take this most current content. But as far as logistics and timelines and moving people into this most current curricula, that we still need to work out those details.
Have you had any conversations, and maybe this is just not enough people, that would be, but is there any plan for folks that don't have access to technology, in other words, who can't take an online class or are not digitally literate?
Yeah. I think in the first pilot, we had several people that either in those agencies didn't have access or struggled with the online component. And each of the agencies said they have resources available. They pulled them into the agency and could, help them walk through the process. Also, libraries, people have been able to go to the library and use, the facilities there. People did try to do the course on their phone. Not ideal, obviously. It's very small. And so I think a few of those were the ones that were then pulled into the agency to really work, side by side or, in the facility where they could raise their hand and get help if they needed it. As far as like the technology piece.
And then my last question, which kind of almost goes back to the last update that you gave. It's a mix between the two, and a perennial conversation that I have, which is, or a question I have, which is sort of what's the thinking about also rolling in BHP, behavioral health professionals into this. And there are other states that have done that really well, credentialing that include behavioral health professionals. And I'm wondering if they are part of the cohort as well, if that's something that you might be learning as part of this national cohort or interested in learning.
Yeah, I mean, we're always interested in learning, and definitely Jake had shared a couple of states that do have kind of an all-in-one, and that, you're a DSW 1 or 2, or, maybe not DSW, but whatever acronym they use. So yeah, definitely interested in learning about all these different models. And I think, we've had conversations about BHP and some of those behavioral health components. I mean, I think there's potential there, but there's, so many competing priorities, and we haven't been able to launch this yet. So we're but we are definitely having conversations.
Thank you. Stephanie?
And I guess I have two questions. One kind of goes with just as BHP, is this going to include the mental health support specialist as well for the part of the MERT certification? Will they be encompassed in this as well?
Again, those are conversations that are ongoing, and I think it's definitely something to explore. Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question has to do with instructors and trainers. So will every agency be asked to have their own trainer, or is this going to be something that everybody's had to, for the skills portion, will everyone have to send their employees to the state in order to get the certification?
So I think with the first pilot, when we got responses, we sent out a questionnaire to agencies asking, as far as the size of their agencies and how many employees they had and how many learners they needed to, get this training done. There were several kind of 1 or 2 employee smaller agencies that we were not able to pull into the pilot because if you've got 1 worker in your agency, you can't really sign yourself off as a DSW, right? And so I think some of these agencies they can reach out to these certified trainers now and could get, into their agency for those skills demonstrations. So I think it'll be a mixture of how this works. And some agencies are able to host their own trainings and have, great medical simulation or, simulation labs and whatnot, but others don't have those capacities or those, available resources. So I think it'll be mixed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, we have some listeners at home. So I want to just give an opportunity for our interested parties to ask any questions or make any comments that they want to. Now is the opportunity that you have. So you can just raise your hand and Erica will bring you in. Bev.
Hello. I don't know if you
Will
can.
will you introduce yourself if you don't mind?
I don't mind. I'm not seeing a way to put my camera on, so I apologize. My name is Bev Uhlenhake, and I am with the Maine Association of Personal Care Agencies. I just wanted to thank all involved for pulling together the DSW training and including private pay PCAs in that group for the pilot program. The folks that I've spoken with who've been part of the pilot program are incredibly happy. Obviously, there are tweaks and changes and conversations about gait belts for older adults that don't work for other folks. And so if DSW is part of this stacking training, it changes what can be everyone can be trained on, but lots of good things that I'm hearing. Also, I will say that the Maine Association of Personal Care Agencies is listening very clearly to those concerns about when there are just a couple people in an agency and therefore don't necessarily have the ability to have a separate trainer, and how we can pull together as a group of personal care agencies and make sure that everyone has that opportunity. So we're thrilled and looking forward to continuing to work together with the department and with licensing to make this happen for everybody.
Thanks, Bev. And you bring up a good point. Another thing that we have stressed with the second pilot is the skills checklist. As you said, the DSW course is a crosswalk of DSP and PSS. And so there are certain skills or equipment needs such as gait belts that are okay in one population that we serve, but maybe not the other. And so when we've moved forward with the second pilot, we've really emphasized that this is foundational. The checklist is foundational skills that can be used across the populations. and that in their agencies or in the trainings, if there needs to be more person-centered skills or different equipment that is used, specific to the populations that you're serving, by all means, this is foundational. You can build upon any of these skills and really make sure that your staff are trained and are, ready for the workforce, for the people that they serve. So thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did ask for an update. Let me just say, are there any other folks in the interested parties who wanted to say anything? Erica?
No.
Okay. And we had asked for an update from the Department of Labor, but Erica tells me Kim was unable to attend and had no updates to share, if I'm getting that accurately. I do want to say that we do one update for our committee is that Representative DeBrito has been appointed from the House of Representatives. She was not able to join us today, but we will catch her up in the interim and bring her up to speed and bring her in the next meeting. And we are still waiting to replace for a new senator appointment and are waiting to hear back from Jill Dusant, who was the person that we reached out to as a potential to serve on the committee. So the next piece of the agenda is to talk about the annual report to the legislature that is due in January, I think. Is that right, Erica? Or December?
That I'm not sure. That would be an Angie question when she gets back.
That's
I
an Angie
apologize.
question when she gets back. Well, it's due sometime either in December or January. I can't recall specifically. Angie is typically the keeper of all of these things, but did want to just touch base with you all to say, are there specific things that you would like to make sure that we see and that we include in that report? Or I can also just tell Angie we'll get back to her. Go ahead, Dylan.
Hey, so I just wanted to add some context on the date here. So I have the report due to the legislature January 1st. Just wanted to add that.
That was my recollection, was that it was early January, such that we had to get it done in December.
Yeah, I think we were scrambling last time, right? Or we scrambled the time before, and so she was
We
preactive.
were like totally with it last time, which is why I thought it was probably a good idea to raise that now. Go ahead.
The report, just remind me, if you would, is it the report of the work that this committee has been undertaking, or does it include any updates on the status of the direct care workforce in terms of as opposed to a year ago? And third, would there be any possibility of reflecting on changes from the federal government side and how that might impact the direct care workforce moving forward? So I know there's a lot in there, but
there's a lot in there. What I was going to do is to sorry, I was actually pulling it up, the statute, just so that we can all be clear about what we typically. So I can say for sure, if we had real and significant year over year, period over period data, then that would certainly be something that we would include in the report, but we obviously don't. So just as a reminder, this committee is charged with collaborating with state government and higher education to examine staffing level needs in the essential support workforce, to make recommendations to state agencies and the legislature related to recruitment and retention of essential support workers, monitor essential support worker shortage and the expansion of the essential support workforce, to examine if actions taken to promote expansion in the essential support workforce have been successful, make recommendations to various state agencies and the legislature regarding additional research needed to further the expansion of the essential support workforce, collect data related to the essential support workforce, examine the benefits cliff effects on the essential support workforce, and make recommendations, including related to legislation. And so, we as an entity in the last report said we did a lot of work and realized that there was no good way for us to monitor worker shortages and whether or not the actions taken by the state were in fact having a positive effect on this workforce. And so we recommended that LD 977 ultimately be a solution to that. So I think that's one thing we'll definitely want to lift up, is that legislation was enacted and that sort of the outcome of that work is critical. And I think we could even go so further as to vote about our thoughts on, and this is, this is one of those things where we can talk about this as a committee because we get to do this. We would recommend that whatever came out of that in relation to the cost of that report would be enacted, that the legislature prioritize publishing that report year after year. So I would say it's probably a little bit early for us because we're, until we understand what the recommendations are going to be, we're not going to, but I think we're going to be monitoring that. The other piece that this committee had taken a position on is the speaker's bill, and there were components of that bill that we decided we were going to weigh in on. We were going to be pretty neutral on one piece. I would have to go back and visit that, but that bill hasn't been heard for public hearing, and so hasn't been scheduled. It will be scheduled sometime next year. I do think it would be useful, and it's been something I've been wanting to do for us, and I would like to wait until Catherine is back, but to do a little bit of work between this meeting and our next meeting to actually talk about what kinds, if there's any recommendations that we may want to make related to additional research that is needed, right? We haven't actually spent a lot of time talking about that, but even in my conversation with Karen Lee about what MHDO might be thinking about bigger picture, longer term, and Betsy, we've talked about this before, but what are the actual health outcomes of people who are entitled to care and or who are on wait lists for care, otherwise would be entitled to, but they, insufficient state funding. What's happening to those people, right? Because MHDO actually has claims data and can actually track, right? If given the right circumstances, can actually say that collectively there were negative, that we were spending more money by not providing care than we have been, and that there were negative health outcomes for the people who weren't getting care. I don't know. That's just a hypothesis, right? We don't know if that's actually true or not. But that's certainly something that would be, for instance, a place where we would say, well, we think we should go further, right? We should understand what's happening to people who aren't getting care.
Particularly in light of waiting lists, like 63 has had a waiting list forever, it feels like. And we don't even know how many people are on it, because that's not transparent either. So, like, I'm not sure we know about anything about folks that are waiting for care, whether it be homemaker care or any other program.
And that's so I think that's exactly true, Betsy. And so it's something that this committee could do, which would be to make inquiry of the department about those things, and I think we could compile questions. We could actually focus our next conversation on what do we know about the impact for people who are waiting for care or not receiving care, and explore what we know, and then make recommendations about how we might want to track information in a different way. And Mary Jane, the same would be true. I think, for nursing homes and assisted living facilities, in other words. I think that's just a pretty interesting and a good area of inquiry. So I should provide another update on something else as well, but which is just, we're not. And Mary Jane, I don't want to put you on the spot, and I don't actually know if you can answer this question, but do nursing homes who take main care as a payer source track the number of people who are waiting to access a bed? And is that just another place where we would have potential access to understand what happens to people who are waiting for care, for nursing home level of care?
So by regulation, we have to have a bound book that tracks referrals, anybody on your waiting list. And that is to make sure a facility is not jumping over people with main care to get to a private pay person, or so there's facilities are already doing it.
Got it.
It
So
would
that's
just be taking that information and putting it into some sort of format that could be sent,
sure. So that's great. So that's good to know that there is that data source.
Yeah.
So I have recommended that Karen Lee be in touch with each sort of entity that has data, because I'm like, I don't know. This is not my. I don't know who tracks what and how, where, and when. So have given her a list of names of people that she should be in touch with to better understand how data is tracked. And Don, don't want to put you on the spot either, but I'm sort of have the same question for behavioral health, right? How do we know who's not getting care? And do you know how if at all, if that's tracked within the behavioral health world?
Yeah, I think that is still true. I mean, we were running waiting lists, but then just doing periodic check-ins, those tend to fall apart because folks have either moved on, not responding. But I can certainly double back with our clinical folks and see what mechanism they're using and what those look like at this time.
That's great. And Michael, I think you have an obligation, right, to call through your list on a fairly regular basis.
Correct.
And does that pardon me?
Go ahead.
Is that data, how often do you do that? And then what happens to that data?
So it used to be monthly, and then we've pushed it to quarterly, and now it's semi-annually, just to the same point as to people who are getting pretty agitated. I'm on a list, I'm on it for years. Why are you calling me every month to not have any change? Or your update is, still don't have any staffing, right? Or still don't have anything available for you. So, because we're talking about, 1,500 folks here. So yeah, and we're trying to get a little bit in line, I think, with way others utilize it, because we're trying to, our wait list, so to speak, are folks that are pre-assessed. So these are folks that, they may have a referral or they may self-refer over, and we're, before they're going to stick on here for a very long time, at least say, hey, this is what the services are. Here are the income limits. Here's some very basic things. We're not going to go through the full-on assessment because then there's contractual obligations on our end to do that with 1,500 other folks that we don't have the ability to do. But at least make sure that they're not, unnecessarily waiting on this list for 6, 8, 10, 12 months, and then check back in. We also try to do at that time too. Hey, do you have anyone within the self-direct option, right? So can we hire someone right now and get you moving for that and get you opened up that way? So that's kind of our initial point of contact, and those people that don't are put on this list. And then we have another what's called unstaffed list, again, someone that we may have been serving and the staff member need to move on, or they didn't get along with that staff member or whatever. And we've got a couple hundred that will be on this that are still waiting for staff, but have been fully assessed and opened and ready for services that way. So we do have some tracking mechanisms there that we continue to monitor and keep track of and assess. Yeah.
Great. Well, and again, Catherine's not here, so we can't hear from folks who are serving people with intellectual disabilities about the data that's available there. But it seems like it would be a good area of inquiry to sort of dedicate our next meeting to this issue, and specifically to any recommendations that we might make related to how we could create a level of tracking that's really not just focused on numbers, but what's happening to people, because that's important.
Yeah, would that be an outreach tool? I mean, yeah, I mean, I just try to think as anecdotal, like we get, because we will communicate out to some of these lists, and we'll get things back, deceased, right? From letters or things like that. I mean, it's like, how are we gonna, and how are things evolving and changing in the meantime? And what's I mean, it'd be great information. It's not, how do you go about ascertaining some of that in ubiquitous across the board kind of uniform way? But the impact would be absolutely staggering. I can just tell you, just anecdotally, at least from our frontline stories of the population that we're serving, for the number of people that are living and hoarding, to, like I said, no running water, no heat, to no bathrooms, literally, to, I mean, it's just inhabitable situations, unfortunately, really, right? Like I said, that's true. And then when we kind of try to come in for our staff, like, there's no way in the world we can even start here, right? Because it's gone too long, too bad. And it's, that we have no staff that can do it. Even though we might have the money and the person ready to be in there now, they won't go in and do it, So there's another sort of unintended consequence that we don't necessarily track or gauge, but is a real reality. Sorry, so that's my little soapbox.
Well, in the worst case scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. 100, and it's more than one person.
Right. Well, and I'm thinking the worst case, and I'm sorry, I had to take my video off because I'm clearly breaking up. Is that that person, who goes into that home finally, says, "No way in hell am I doing this," and also walks away from the job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing I wonder about, Jess, is given the waiting list for programs, it may mask in some ways the need for the workers, because if we have, like, I don't know, I'll make up a number because I don't know what the number is. Say we have 1,000 people waiting for HBSS, which is Section 63. Those workers that would have been working in that program potentially have now gone and are working in other parts of the system. So it may look like there are improvements in some parts of the system, but it may only be a result of other parts of the system not serving any new people. So it's a very fluid workforce, and it's like, it's very hard sometimes, I think, to draw causality inferences because there are so many moving parts.
Yeah, I don't know that we can do causality. I think what we can do is report data, right? And then maybe we drill down further, but I'm trying to come back on. Michael, and I just can't remember the quadruple A report, but is the data, is that the waitlist data included in the quadruple A report for you?
I think, again, we submit it every month and quarter, but I don't typically see it thereafter, so I can't definitively say where or if it is utilized. But we have certainly access to years worth, record keeping and tracking there for sure.
When it seems we should also one question that Karen Lee, I will make sure that Karen Lee, by the way, comes to our next meeting. But I also, one question she asked was how regularly, we think this data should be published. And it seems like a really good question. Like, should we have a dashboard with a month-over-month report of number of beds unstaffed in nursing homes, number of people unserved in the homemaker program, number of people unserved in 63, number of people on the wait list for Section 63, just so that we again understand trying to get our arms around what's the magnitude of the problem as we are trying to grow this workforce.
And how many are served, I think, is important too.
That's exactly what we're trying to get at. Erica,
Betsy,
sorry.
Go,
Michael.
say Betsy or other. I know not everyone's here, but when you I guess, reach out to those that are on your website? I'm just trying to think, like you said, I mean, we can report data of numbers, but I mean, I'm thinking on our end, if we're already checking in, if we were to add 2 or 3 questions about something more qualitative around the impact of this weight and that it's having on them in a couple of areas in terms of financial or health or something like that we could try to have standard across. I mean, that could be a way that if I'm hitting 1,500 people and somebody else is hitting their list, then we'd have a uniform across the board of not only just number of open beds, but the impact that it's being made on people's. It's a little bit of, I guess, self-reporting, if you will, and so there's some biases there. I'm just trying to go above and beyond just numbers, as well as like this is not just a number. This is a person that's living in some really terrible situations. The impact it's having to put additional sort of perspective on it. I don't know. It's just a thought, I guess.
We don't hold a wait list anymore. The state does.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we did when Michael. We did do that exact thing. I mean, we did the same thing you did. We checked in on the people on the waiting list to see what their status was, so that we could maintain a fresh waiting list and sure. But I don't know what the state is doing.
Well, and Jamie, is that something you can find out and report on? I don't want to put you on the spot, but this seems to Section 63. If it was a standard operating procedure to call people on the wait list on a regular basis to make sure that to address what their current needs were, and the state is now maintaining that wait list, can you determine if the state is now making those calls?
Sure, I can find that out and report back.
That would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's and Betsy, there's a distinction, right? And Michael, sorry to keep drilling down with you all, but actually, Mary Jane, this would be for you too. And the distinction between a wait list, right, and people who are entitled to care but not getting it, right? I know
You mean someone who's been opened?
Section 19. So I'm talking about Section 19 or Section 63 and ISS. So somebody who's been approved for care, right, and not on the wait list for care, right? There isn't a wait list for Section 19,
right?
And then maybe they get a worker for 5 minutes, and then the worker goes away because of what Michael was just talking about, and then they're unserved. Do you call those people on a regular basis? I assume you do.
We do, if they're on our caseload. Yeah.
And you too, Michael, for people on ISS who are not on the wait list but are supposed to be getting services but aren't. Do you talk to them?
Correct. Yeah, and we do more of a full-on continual assessment and deeper dive for that population than we would for the wait list. Yes. So the hope is that the staff would come on and boom, we can get you going right away.
So it sounds like there's almost 2 opportunities to ask a couple of qualitative questions as you're talking about, Michael, about the impact of not getting care if you're supposed to be getting care and you're not getting it versus being on the wait list for care and not being able to knock it on the door but not getting in.
Right.
Great. So any other, I feel compelled to say this has been a great conversation, and I'll work with Catherine to put something together. Erica, when is our next meeting scheduled for?
It looks like November 3rd, and it's from 1 to 4 o'clock.
So I will commit to you for working with Catherine to review this meeting and come up with an agenda and try to ask folks to come ready to hear information and then maybe make recommendations related to what more we can be doing to collect data about the impact and maybe how we would recommend data be shared about wait lists on a regular basis, updated and shared on a regular basis. And Don, this is for you too, and Catherine in relation to IDD. So we'll try to make this a very thorough exploration. Anything else in that regard before I'll offer an update, and then I'll go to our interested parties again. Okay, so I do want to say we did get a little bit of more funding to work with the Maine Center for Economic Policy and to do a little bit of research around and Bev just came in and around people who were never going to qualify, right, for these services we were just talking about because they have just a bit too much money. And so are never going to qualify, but are still in need of care. And so they would have to pay out of pocket for care, whether that's for assisted living or nursing home or home care or even homemaker services, right? So these are people who need help at home and or may need to have live in a place where they gain access to care, but are not going to have enough money to do that. And so starting to try to quantify what that number is, because the personal care agencies don't track that, right? They don't track wait lists. And this is the same problem with trying to understand who's waiting to access affordable housing. Like sometimes some people track, some people don't track, some people call, some duplicates. So we're trying to start to get our arms around the idea of how many people out there need care but can't access care, right? And either because they can't afford it and or there isn't a worker in their region. So we're starting that conversation, and then the other part of the conversation we're starting to explore is what are the potential of some outside the box financing mechanisms that we could think about. And I'm going to say this out loud, not actually it, but like the paid family medical leave, where everybody pays into it and everybody gets something out of it, that would create a more significant funding stream across the board for these services that create more predictability and stability in the workforce generally, because it is partially subsidized by private dollars. And what are the models out there? There are a couple in relation to this workforce. And then what are some models that are completely unrelated to this problem or this workforce that we could borrow and say, is there a way to think about funding this differently and really through a private and public partnership, so that we're maximizing the federal and state dollars that are being put in, and also making sure everybody gets served, right? Because there's this whole group of people out there who can't access care, and bad things are happening to them too, in a lot of different ways. So that's early days. That's what I can say about that. We're just starting to have conversations around those pieces, but it's nice to be able to think a little bit bigger about some solutions. So that's the only update I have from that. Anybody else have any updates before we go back to our interested parties for any comment? And I'm sorry, my internet is slow. All right, how about interested parties? Does anybody have any comments based on the conversation that we just had? That you just can raise your hand and we'll bring you back in if you've got something you wanted to share. Nothing. All right, hearing nothing. I think we have exhausted our formal agenda. Any partner updates that anybody wants to offer at all? All right, then I will give you back an hour of your time today. I know. Yay, look, people are happy. I made people happy on a Monday, so this is a good day. All right, thank you all, and we'll see you on November 3rd from we'll probably say 1 to 3, not 1 to 4. And we'll put together a pretty robust agenda for that meeting. So thanks so much. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.